do that, but I still want to do it with Skycoin, because eventually, once I figure my side out, then I'm going to go to my neighbors and be like, hey, let's do this. And,
the whole county, the whole neighborhood.
Well, I just have a small town, so I'm going to start with the town. But anyways, I also want to know, are you guys ever thinking about doing like a phone kind of mesh network, or is that a long-term plan? Or
I have oh my god. So I'll have a Skycoin laptop, a Skycoin phone,
nice.
hardware wallet. We have, this is the SkyMiner. So this is like 8 computers and then a router. We're designing a new router. Each computer has 4 or 6 cores. They're cell phone processors, really low power. You can actually, people are running this like a tiny ass solar panel, which is crazy. And it has 100 gigabit Ethernet to each of these. So and then you put in an SD card, and each one can run like 2 blockchains, 4 blockchains, and then we got like a power distribution bus. So we're building a corporate version of this, which is like if you're a company, you can buy 300 nodes and throw them in your office, and it'll run like your email server, your internal text message, like messaging for the company. It'll run file. You have like your own Dropbox, your own Google Drive, just for your friends or your company. So you could run your own like Raspberry Pi. You and your friends can have like this, like a file sharing, like your own Google Drive.
Yeah.
The files are stored on your own computer, not on Google, not on Amazon, not on, So this is for small companies that have multiple campuses and that operate in multiple countries, because in China you have Baidu Drive and it's slow in the US, and then in US you have Google Drive and it's blocked in China, and then you can pay a third party and they're charging you like $50 a year or $200 a year per employee just to have this little drive, but a hard drive is $100, and so it's cheap. So we're creating this decentralized file system first for small businesses, and then also for just sharing files and movies, and having a copy of your audio files, and having it decentralized. So I can have a copy at my office, have a copy at my house, have a copy at my mom's, and it'll automatically sync. So you can have a fire at 2 locations and you won't lose your data. And it's encrypted. So the computer that actually is storing the data cannot read the data. So you could have all your music files on your computer, and the FBI can raid your house, SWAT team with the guns, and they can't get your music files. So fuck them.
Yeah, nice. That's SkyMiner 1.0. Isn't you guys are working on a 2.0, right?
2.0. Yeah. The 2.0, I'm doing a refactor, and I wouldn't say it's from scratch, but there's not even like one line of code that's not being moved, and the whole installation, like I'm gonna, for the company setup, if you have high-end servers, there's this thing called IMPI, and if I have like 1 million servers like Google, I can press one button, and through the IMPI interface, install Linux on all those computers, boot them up, run them. I can nuke the operating system in one command and reinstall the whole operating system, called boot over network. We're implementing that for these little so there's a chip shortage right now, and we're designing a custom PCB board, and we're using a standard SoC. Later, we might have a custom SoC, because we're doing some. I'll tell you about this later. I'm gonna have this little chip, like a 50 cent, like maybe ESP32, and I have my cell phone, and I hit a button. It'll connect to them over Wi-Fi, and it'll say, download this file, write it to the boot sector, restart, and then it'll boot with the new software. So it's broken, you hit one button, it'll nuke the whole file system, reboot from scratch, start up, go through a self-test diagnostic, connect to the network, and then just start running. So this is and I'm doing this not for like these home people. This is for like enterprise. And later on, there's some fun stuff that so when in Skywire, okay, our current internet, when you send a packet, you get a tweet or something. It goes from Japan to Thailand to LA to Wyoming to blah blah blah. It goes through 50 people, right? They see your source, the source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port, and the time. So they know exactly your IP address, who it's from, who it's going to. Every single Google changed their algorithm to force every website to have a single IP address.
Jeez.
To make it easier for if you're easier to track what website you're accessing, because before there were VPSs in a blog, and there might be 600 blogs on the same IP address, so they don't know which blog you're researching. So Google said we're gonna dock these people for not having a single IP address, and it made it a lot easier to track what website you were going to. Okay, so and this isn't just the U.S. It's if your traffic went through Japan, the Japanese government, the Thai government, the Hong Kong government, the company operating the fiber optic cable, any ISP that your traffic transited over, they're collecting that data and selling it to anyone, actually, to advertising firms, to whatever. Like it's to the point that like pretend you were China, like some government, like the North Korea wanted to go and buy all of the IP addresses of some who access some blog that would be read by like people working at the NSA or something. If they want to do that, they could just go and pay them $5,000. They'll sell it. They don't care who to. They don't. It's a giant free for all. The police can buy the data. The government can buy the data. Private like if Monsanto doesn't like this blog about anti-Monsanto, they can go and there's a broker and they will sell you a target list basically of everyone who is accessing that blog. I had people contact me and they wanted to sell me all the newspaper articles that were being read by employees at Goldman Sachs. And I said, where'd you get this data? Is it legal? It's like, yeah, it's perfectly legal. And where'd you get the data? Oh, the ISP gave it to us. And is it legal? It's like, yeah, we're a Cayman Island company, so U.S. law doesn't apply to us. So it's legal in the Cayman. It's legal where we are. And I'm like, okay. And like, this is what literally that's what they told me. And so the new internet, we're not going to have IP addresses. We have public keys, and everything is encrypted end to end. And we have multiple hops, and each hop only knows the next hop and the previous hop. So if you're listening, even if you're running a Skywire node, you know the previous hop, you know the next hop, and maybe you know how much bandwidth that connection sent, but you cannot read what they're sending, and you don't know where it's coming from, and you don't know where it's going. And this is the new internet.
And it's all pieces of data, right? All broken up and sent all over the place. And
yeah, so you might have 5 connections to someone, and they all go over different paths. And the data cannot be read because it's all encrypted. It doesn't matter what it is. And each hop, if you're intercepting a hop between Skywire nodes, you can't read it either because there's point-to-point, there's a hop-to-hop encryption called transport encryption. Then there's end-to-end encryption. Then applications can have additional encryption if they want additional encryption or user authentication. So, but to do this, we can only get 30 to 50 megabits per second of encryption per cell phone chip. So we're actually integrating FPGAs onto the board so that we can encrypt the traffic between Skywire nodes in hardware at line speed, even at 1 gigabit or 10 gigabit per second. So if you have a corporate network and you have a 10 gigabit fiber optic line, we have one chip and we will be able to encrypt all of the traffic going over that SPF module at line speed. So if you're a company and you have 500 fiber optic lines that are 10 gigabits each feeding into your network backbone, we're having hardware level, this is like military grade hardware level, encryption with FPGAs, and that's Skywire 3.0. So if you're a company and you're or a telecom provider, this is stuff that only Google did this. Google has enough money and people that they can design their own chips, and they caught they cooperate with the U.S. government, but they also caught them intercepting fiber optic lines between their data centers. Yeah. So they're sending Gmail traffic between data centers with no encryption on the line, and the U.S. government's just siphoning it, and they didn't even know about it. Then they learned about it from Snowden. Then they installed encryption on these 100 gigabit fiber optic lines between their data centers. And so, yeah, Google has that, but if you're a company with 10,000 employees, and you only have 15 data centers and only 10,000 employees, and you don't have your own ASIC FPGA engineers and Russian cybersecurity experts, and you're not big enough to produce your own fiber optic encryption modules like Google is, you didn't have access to this before. So this is like government, military, companies, and they want open source firmware. So they want to be able to compile the firmware themselves and put it on the chip. And if they don't like the chip that we provide, they can produce their own board according to the standard. They can buy their own components, they can solder them, and they can compile the firmware themselves and flash it onto the device in their own factory if they wanted to. And so this is like, this is something we've been asked for 6, and this, none of this is really asked for by the public, but companies, governments, like, there's a lot of, I can't even talk about it, like, and I sign like NDAs, but there's a lot of bullshit going on with this. And it's even like one government agency wiretapping like another agency, or one group in this agency wiretapping another agency, or like a government agency has an approved vendor list for their encryption, but all the companies are backdoors so that they can be spied on by another. So there's like a company and they'll sell you like an encrypted messaging app, but it was actually funded by some billionaire who wanted to get a backdoor into. So like they produce like an encrypted messaging app for oil companies. Keep your data secure. And it's really like some executive at ExxonMobil started the encryption app so that he could steal proprietary data from oil companies in Sudan or some, to see what the people in the company, so it's like, you can't trust anyone.
That was a wild one with Synth from Skycoin. If you guys want to watch the rest of that interview, go ahead and click that button right here now and watch the beginning and the end of all 3 parts of the Synth interview from Skycoin. And if you would like more of this stuff from the Freedom Unchained channel, please subscribe to the channel, please like, please comment, and please share this around to everybody. Until next time, I'm going to leave you guys in the love and the light of one infinite creator. Peace.